The Nintendo Wii launched in North America on November 19th, 2006, in competition with the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. It not only became the hot new thing for a while, but gave Nintendo the shot of popularity it needed for a decade. It's 10 years old now, so I wanted to give that little white box that means so much to me the respect it deserves in a video that is totally not ripping off Some Call Me Johnny's PlayStation review.
Let me tell you a little bit about my gaming history. Unlike a lot of people who play video games for the internet, I didn't grow up on these things. My parents thought they'd be bad for me, so I was limited to the couple games I could play on the family iMac. I had to get my fill with playing games like Battlefront 2 at my friend's house and reading gaming magazines they'd bring to class. That's where I got my first taste of the 7th generation in the lead up to the release of the Wii and PS3. It was such a simple console, which gives it a charm to me. Assuming all the flaps were closed, it was just a white box, which gives a subtle vibe to its features, I feel. No expansive internet support, no DVD support, no advanced graphics, but it's very focused and condensed. Same with the controller, it's so bare without anything plugged into it. Even with the nunchuck, it still has less buttons than your standard controller. Now, of course, this controller is the most noteworthy thing about the system. Because motion controls. Honestly, nowadays there's nothing to talk about, but it can't be understated how big of a deal this was when the console came out. Suddenly, people who had never played a game before wanted to play some bowling, and nothing else. Yes, Grandma, there are other games on the Wii besides bowling. Honestly, just in terms of ergonomics, I love this thing. Both the remote and the nunchuck fit so well in my hands, and their separated nature means I can spread my arms apart while I'm playing. And if you need a more traditional setup, the original classic controller is my favorite 2D controller out there. It's really difficult to talk about the Wii today because there's almost 2 different eras of its life. I implore those that were there, remember what things were like in the first 2 years of its life. Back in the days when Carnival Games was a popular franchise, Red Steel was remembered at all, and Wii Play was that game that everyone owned despite the fact that it was a veritable piece of shit. Back when it was easy to claim there were no good third-party games and Zack and Wiki was thrown around as the only exception despite being completely lost to time today. I'm more interested in the perception of the second half because that's where I jumped in 2009. It's been claimed since the N64 that the only reason to buy a Nintendo console is their first-party titles, and the Wii offered some great ones, selectively. If you're a Mario fan, here's the best game in the series. If you're a Metroid fan, here's a super cool compilation. If you're a Zelda fan, here's one of the best. Yeah, I said it! Now, you're sort of left in the dark on other franchises like Star Fox. This was before they attempted to revive certain series, but they gave us Super Luigi Galaxy, my second favorite game of all time. I'm not going to complain. But of course, that ain't the big game. I think it's safe to say, outside of Galaxy being incredible, the Wii didn't get its real start until Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And holy hell did I put a lot of time into this game. This was back in the day when my friends would come over every Friday night, so every Friday night was Smash Bros. That was one of the intents for the system, bring the family together for some video games, and those multiplayer memories are the ones I cherish most. Today I don't play Brawl anymore, I've since completely dropped it for Smash 4, but those 100 plus hours we put into it don't lie about how awesome it was. This wasn't the only multiplayer game we played plenty of course. Remember, this was 2009, Guitar Hero was still popular before its catastrophic drop-off. I spent $90 to get a full band kit, and that got some use between us. We usually played World Tour because we liked the songs more than 5, and we never did any Rock Band, but again, it's that local multiplayer. I own like 20 PS3 games, and 2 of them have any sort of local multiplayer. We tended to play the same games every week, so if I want to talk about the varied genres, I'm heading to single-player stuff. After all, this is where a lot of my sensibilities formed, right from the start. When I first bought the system, along with the controllers and such, my first game was Mega Man, now my favorite game series. I love platformers, the Wii certainly had them. New Super Mario Bros. Wii, besides selling a fuckload, is pretty good. I've already reviewed Klonoa, so I don't need to talk about it much here, but I just want to iterate again that I love this game, especially now that it's getting an anime movie, fuck yeah! Kirby's Epic Yarn might be easy, but it's positively adorable and I thought it was fun. Rayman Origins was amazing until Legends came around and improved it in every way. And then of course there's Sonic. Yeah, okay, Secret Rings may very well be the worst game the series has ever produced, but Colors is probably their best. And I personally really love Black Knight. And I think the Wii version of Unleashed is better than the HD version. Seriously, highly overlooked this one. Despite the local multiplayer focus, the Wii was not a big system for fighting games, considering the genre was kind of dead on consoles until Street Fighter 4. Of course, Smash Bros. Was the big one, but there was certainly an audience for Tatsunoko vs. Capcom as well, though it's not me. We also used to play a lot of Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 through rentals, though the only one I own is Castlevania Judgment. Don't judge me, I didn't know better when I bought it. Also, I don't think it's that bad. You know what was big on here? Racing games. Okay, maybe it was just Mario Kart Wii being bought by everyone with the system after they put it away once they got bored with Wii Sports, but it's not like it was the only one. There was also Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, the one I own because it's way cheaper than the Mario alternative. Just as good. And hey, for the one no one's played, Excitebots is pretty fun. Certainly a more unique take on the genre, but that gives it its own identity. Maybe I should bring this one to social gatherings more often. Further proof that I like what I could play, I'm still trying to find my RPG footing because there was very little available. Yeah, Xenoblade is a cult classic that I've never played, but the last story is good. I think. I want to say I like this game, but I know I'm terrible at it and I barely play it. More of an RPG-inspired guy, like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles The Crystal Bearers. It ain't Final Fantasy or even Crystal Chronicles, but it's alright. And you know what? I'll say it, Super Paper Mario is really good. I like it more than Thousand Year Door. You know what confuses me a lot? The 7th generation was when first-person shooters took off into astronomical levels of popularity, and the Wii got totally shafted in that revolution, despite having the perfect controller for it. Even as I've gotten more used to PC gaming with this computer, nothing can replace pointer controls. And while Treyarch was doing their best to keep Call of Duty ports coming, which I'll applaud them for, it's the original stuff that matters. I think people have forgotten how big of a deal the Conduit was in the Wii community before its release. I remember getting extensive coverage in Nintendo Power for bringing an original FPS for the Wii post-Modern Warfare, being apparently technically impressive, and it having endless control customization options and an extensive online multiplayer. Also, it's got Hercules as the main character. And after all the hype, it's pretty good. Not the best thing ever, it's got a bunch of problems, but it's still pretty well designed and satisfying. Though the total lack of local multiplayer is a sore spot, and even when the online worked, it was filled with hackers that made it unplayable. You're playing this one for the single player. You know what? Conduit 2 was alright as well. I think the single player was a little worse, the guns just didn't feel as good, and the story mattered way less outside the most crazy awesome ending you'll ever see, but I guess it was still solid. They tried to improve the multiplayer with a secure online and multiple local modes, but it didn't quite work out. Why not? Because they had competition now in the form of what I consider to be one of the best games for the system, GoldenEye 007. I'm not going to mince words here, the Wii version of GoldenEye is one of my favorite games. The campaign is a really good updated retelling of the movie. The gunplay is super fun. The stealth, well not Metal Gear, is so fun. And oh hell, the multiplayer. Once this came out, me and my friends dropped Brawl and Guitar Hero. GoldenEye was our jam. And I put a lot of time into that online. It was so good, and shit, it still works. This one game justified online multiplayer for the whole console. Because it's the only one I played. Seriously, this game's been ported to 360 and PS3 now. Play it. Such a shame 007 Legends was a letdown. Hey, speaking of shooters the Wii did so well, there was almost a renaissance of light gun shooters because this is the perfect way to play them. Unfortunately, I don't own any of them, but I rented and played all the major ones. For the sake of time, my top recommendations are House of the Dead Overkill and Resident Evil The Dark Side Chronicles. All the good ones are also available on the PS3 if you own a Move. Except Link's Crossbow Training. Just don't use the Wiis app that they tried to shove on you with that one. Oh yeah, this thing was host to a lot of peripherals. I'm not talking about the actual hunks of plastic third-party companies try to throw on you. I'm talking actual hardware Nintendo put out. Probably the most substantial is the Motion Plus launched with Wii Sports Resort. It's a good demonstration as well as being a good game. Don't play the original Wii Sports anymore. It's also necessary for Skyward Sword and a few others, like Red Steel 2, that's a pretty good one. And the balance board. Get off your fat ass and exercise with Wii Fit. A notable sentiment, but the game is super judgmental and guilt trippy. I hate it. Hey, does anyone remember the Wii Vitality sensor? It got cancelled, but what were they really expecting with that one? That's generally the biggest complaint with the Wii, that it was too focused on casual players. It was too kiddie. And sure, it's the minority, but fucking Mad World exists. The inaugural game for Platinum, this Sin City-inspired gore fest, sold poorly and goes for amazingly low prices now, so take advantage of that. It's so good. And then, of course, there's No More Heroes. I don't have too much to say about the first one. It's kinda clunky, but still good. It's No More Heroes 2 you should look out for. It cannot be understated how much I adore this game. It's seriously in my top 5. Outside the final boss, I love everything about it, and I will replay this a lot. There were a couple horror games too, besides the like-on entries in horror franchises like Resident Evil and Dead Space. The Wii port of Resident Evil 4 is probably still the best version of the game, depends on how you value pointer versus mouse. And there was Silent Hill Shattered Memories. I know it's a contested entry in the series, but it's a very good game, just not fully representative of old Silent Hill. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, it's not the most impressive stuff they could offer, but it's not like these series were putting out amazing stuff on the HD consoles either. I won't lie though, these are still the minority. Especially early on, there was so much shovelware being dumped on here. Just go look at Dated Designs catalog, like the fabulous Ninja Bread Man. But nowadays, when the system has all but lost its place on store shelves, you're cherry picking what you want to play. It's easy to ignore the piles of useless crap. Aside from the weird stuff I'll probably pick up because they might make fun reviews, I'm basically done buying Wii games because I own all the ones I want. But if the Wii library wasn't enough, it's also riding on the entire GameCube library as well. When the 360 and PS3 were a little more iffy on backwards compatibility, the Wii perfectly supported every GameCube game and accessory that connected to the controller or memory card slot. In the original model, which are the most common ones on the used market anyway. It was my introduction to the GameCube too, which meant a lot of Mega Man mainly. But also some Zelda games like Wind Waker, which is now my favorite Zelda. And if GameCube backwards compatibility wasn't enough, that's why the Virtual Console exists. Remember, this was before PSN had PS1 and 2 games available for download, so it was a super cool idea to have games from so many consoles available for easy access that even the Wii U has yet to meaningfully replicate. Yeah, it's easy to say the catalog was limited and overpriced without the means to recover them if the console dies, but it was a neat idea, and it's easier than buying a Super Nintendo just for some Super Castlevania 4. The original games on WiiWare were significantly less useful with its limited support and file size, but Mega Man 9.
Everyone has a soft spot for their first console, so the Wii will always hold a special place in my heart for that reason. Not quite to the level of nostalgia as those old Mac games, but it's very important in my career as a gamer. Maybe it didn't have the best library. I've recently discovered how amazing the PS3 was, but considering how cheap the system goes for nowadays, it's worth picking it up for the good shit it had. And if you do happen to own a Wii U, backwards compatibility is still a thing. And speaking of the Wii U, let's hope the Switch brings Nintendo back to the level of awesomeness that I think the Wii personified. Well, maybe not, but good stuff. I'm hopeful.